tonight's news edition. His Majesty the King meets local leaders from Zarqa on the services needed by their governorate and discusses the political situation in the region. Jordan summons the Iranian ambassador to reiterate its strong condemnation of the ransacking and burning of Saudi diplomatic missions in Iran. And the United States says initial analysis of North Korea's nuclear test is not consistent with the claim of a successful hydrogen bomb test. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King said he is proud of the people of the governorate of Zarqa, where he had memories and friends during his military service in the armed forces. King Abdullah told dignitaries and local figures at a royal court audience that he is in the picture of the challenges facing the country's governorates, especially those of the environment, services, and population density. During the meeting, part of the King's reach out to all Jordanians across the country, His Majesty assured that combating poverty and unemployment are a top national priority. He said he had emphasized the economy for the past years, having recognized the economic pressures on citizens, but stressed that the security situation is reassuring. The King told the dignitaries and elders of Zarqa that Jordanians this year will commemorate the Great Arab Revolt Centennial and the 70th independence anniversary, but said a lot needed to be done to achieve the aspired progress. King Abdullah said he was not worried about the political, security, or military situation, as the Jordanian armed forces and security forces stood ready to protect the country, but our duty today is to elevate the living standards of Jordanians as a fundamental goal. He said that the import of most of the kingdom's energy needs and the Syrian refugee crisis that burdened the budget were major problems. He also said he draws his morale from his people despite the pressures the region and the world face. He referred to a key international conference in Britain early next month on the Syrian refugee problem and on Jordan in particular. The meeting of a large number of world nations will look into how to assist Jordan ease its internal and external debts and carry out development projects. He said that Jordan sees the conference as an opportunity to attract more investments and aid to raise the standards of living, calling for collective work to achieve that goal. His Majesty the King discussed on the phone with Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud regional issues, including attacks on Saudi missions in Iran. During two phone calls, His Majesty condemned the attacks on the Saudi embassy in Tehran and consulate in Mashhad as a violation of international conventions and said Jordan stands with Saudi Arabia in fighting terrorism and extremism and in securing its stability and security. The Ministry of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs summoned the Iranian ambassador to reiterate Jordan's strong condemnation of attacks on Saudi Arabia's embassy in Tehran and consulate in the Iranian city of Mashhad. The ministry said the assaults, which saw demonstrators ransacking and burning the diplomatic missions, were a gross violation of international norms and agreements, namely the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. The ministry spokesman said the envoy was told that Jordan also condemned Iran's meddling in the internal affairs of Arab countries. He said statements made by Iranian officials would ignite sectarian tensions in the region and the world at a time the region faces the danger of extremism and terrorist gangs. This sectarian escalation, he said, would feed extremism and create a fertile ground for its dissemination. The spokesman reaffirmed the need to respect convictions issued by the Saudi Judicial Authority as a purely internal Saudi affair. Qatar recalled its ambassador to Iran after Saudi Arabia and Bahrain cut their ties with Tehran following attacks on Saudi missions by Iranian protesters. Bahrain, meanwhile, said it caught an Iranian-linked cell plotting attack on its territory. There was no immediate reaction from Iran, caught up in a mounting diplomatic dispute with Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. The state news agency reported that a secret terrorist plot aided by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the Hezbollah organization was foiled. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said Saudi Arabia's decision to execute Shiite cleric Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr over the weekend that stirred Iran's anger was a domestic issue. He said the cleric was put to death along with 46 Sunnis for their affiliation with Al-Qaeda. In a speech to local officials, Erdogan said those who remained silent about the deaths of people in Syria's civil war were not causing uproar over the execution of one person in Saudi Arabia. Riyadh has cut all ties with Iran following the kingdom's execution of the Shiite cleric. It has said it will only restore them when Tehran stops meddling in the affairs of other countries. Without mentioning the country by name, Erdogan rebuked Iran for its regional policies. The flare-up between Iran and Saudi Arabia threatened to derail efforts to end Syria's civil war. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour led a meeting of the ministerial committee tasked with drawing up the initial legislative blueprint for an investment fund that His Majesty the King had ordered to be set up. The panel convened to check on the progress of its work and learn about world-class practices to define the fund's concept and draft its legislative blueprint. In the speech from the throne opening Parliament's ordinary session, His Majesty the King had instructed that a Jordanian investment fund be launched to attract capital from Arab banks and sovereign funds. It would also seek to lure in private sector enterprises and individuals into national development and entrepreneurial projects to prop up the economy. The British Royal Air Force said its jets had hit several Daesh targets in Iraq. It released videos showing a Typhoon jet in northern Iraq destroying 2 mechanical excavators, which it said were being used by Daesh to build defensive positions. British jets were also shown hitting what the Air Force said was a team of militants who were preparing to fire rockets at Kurdish positions. The U.S.-led coalition said the militant group's territory had shrunk by 40% from its maximum expansion in Iraq as international forces pushed it out of several cities. The coalition said it carried out 19 new airstrikes targeting Daesh terrorists. The strikes took place near 8 Iraqi cities, hitting several of the militant group's tactical units, fighting positions, bunkers, and various equipment. It said the air raids clustered near Ramadi also wounded several Daesh fighters and hit vehicles and buildings.
This past week, as Iraqi security forces have been clearing the city, they discovered civilians who were killed execution style, civilians who were injured by IEDs, civilians being used as human shields, and civilians who were being shot as they attempted to run to safety.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said it is the Israeli government that refuses to work towards a peace agreement with the Palestinian Authority and wishes to perpetuate the occupation. Meanwhile, mourners marched in a funeral procession in the occupied West Bank for a Palestinian man shot dead by Israeli troops after allegedly stabbing a soldier. The attack occurred at Gush Etzion Junction in the West Bank, a scene of many recent incidents. The Israeli military said forces at the scene responded to the attack and shot the man, resulting in his death. North Korea said it successfully tested a miniaturized hydrogen nuclear bomb, claiming a significant advance in its strike capability. But the White House said initial analysis of the test is not consistent with Pyongyang's claim of a successful test. The reported test is the 4th time North Korea has detonated a nuclear device. North Korea's official news agency said the test was ordered by leader Kim Jong-un. While a 4th nuclear test had been long expected, the claim that it was a hydrogen device much more powerful than atomic bomb came as a surprise, as did the timing. The device had a yield of about 6 kilotons, according to the office of a South Korean lawmaker, roughly the same size as the North's last test, which was equivalent to 6 to 7 kilotons of TNT. The United States Geological Survey reported a 5.1 magnitude quake that South Korea said was 49 kilometers from the site where the North has conducted nuclear tests in the past. The test, nevertheless, may mark an advance of North Korea's nuclear technology. The claim of miniaturizing, which would allow the device to be adapted as a weapon and placed on a missile, would pose a new threat to the United States and its regional allies, Japan and South Korea. The UN nuclear watchdog expressed its concern over North Korea's announcement. The International Atomic Energy Agency called it a worrying development.
DPLK's nuclear test, if confirmed, is in clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions and is deeply regrettable. I strongly urge the DPLK to implement fully all relevant resolutions of the UN Security Council and the IAEA. The IAEA remains ready to contribute to the peaceful resolution of the DPLK nuclear issue by resuming its nuclear verification activities in the DPLK once a political agreement is reached among countries concerned.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon met his advisors following the reports that North Korea had tested a hydrogen nuclear device on orders from its leader. The Security Council was due to meet later in the day to discuss what steps it could take. Ban described the situation as very shocking and deeply troubling, adding that it was the fourth such test since 2006.
It was, again, very shocking and deeply troubling situation that North Korea had detonated fourth time since 2006. This time allegedly a hydrogen bomb. This whole world is shocked about this.
A U.S. government source said American experts did not believe that the nuclear device apparently tested by North Korea was a hydrogen bomb. The sources said it would likely take at least several days to determine what kind of nuclear device Pyongyang had apparently set off, as a variety of sensors, including sniffer planes, collected evidence. Japan sent fighter planes on a mission to collect radiation measurements after North Korea's announcement. 3 planes with special dust-collecting pods took off from 3 different bases across Japan earlier today. But Japan's nuclear regulatory agency said no irregular radiation has been so far detected. Across Japan, there was shock and anger at North Korea's nuclear tests. South Korea promised a swift response to the bomb test, which also drew an outcry from other regional powers.
South Korean President Park Geun-hye condemned North Korea's test of a hydrogen nuclear device on Wednesday and promised swift retribution.
Our government has to take decisive measures against additional provocations and work with the international community to make sure the isolated country pays the price for its latest nuclear test.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe agreed and said the nuclear test was a serious threat to the nation's security. We strongly denounce it, he said. Announcing the test in a bulletin on North Korean state broadcaster KRT, the news presenter said North Korea would keep its nuclear program as long as the U.S. maintains its, quote, stance of aggression. The U.S. ambassador to South Korea met with military officials in Seoul who said they're preparing countermeasures to restrain against further provocations. Caroline Kennedy, the U.S. ambassador to Japan, said the U.S. stands with its allies.
We stand with Japan and our partners and allies in solidarity in the face of North Korean provocations, and we will work closely together with you in the coming days.
China, North Korea's only ally, said it had no prior knowledge of the test and firmly opposed it. Beijing vowed to work with the international community to find a solution. North Korea is already under UN Security Council sanctions but could face more. The Security Council will meet later on Wednesday to discuss further steps.
The jackpot in the Powerball lottery has ballooned to an estimated $450 million ahead of its drawing. The current jackpot for Powerball, played in 44 states, Washington, and 2 U.S. territories, is worth over $275 million if a winner chooses an immediate cash payout instead of annual payments of over 30 years. The last Powerball jackpot winner was in November when a ticket holder from Tennessee claimed a $144 million prize. The largest ever U.S. lottery jackpot payout was in March 2012 when $656 million was won in a Mega Million drawing. Australian Nick Kyrgios beat Britain's Andy Murray in an exciting match at the Hopman Cup in Perth. Andy Murray's preparations for this month's Australian Open suffered a setback in the men's singles when the world number 2 went down in straight sets to local favorite Kyrgios. The world number 30 beat Murray 6-4, 7-6 in the opening men's singles of the round-robin tie. It is the first time Kyrgios has beaten Murray. Zinedine Zidane made his debut on the training pitch as Real Madrid's new coach amidst the excitement of fans attending the club's open training session held every year ahead of the celebration of Three Kings Day in Spain. Zidane's appointment as Real Madrid's coach in place of Rafa Benitez has handed the club's former France great his chance to follow up a stellar career on the pitch with management success at the highest level. Benitez, experienced but unpopular, was abruptly dismissed 2 days ago, less than halfway through the season, after results left the club trailing leaders Atletico Madrid and Barcelona in La Liga. And finally, it will continue to be cold tonight, especially in the desert and hilly areas. Tomorrow, a slight rise in temperatures expected, but it will remain relatively cold in many regions. Winds will be southwesterly moderate to brisk, with a slight chance of light showers in the western parts of the kingdom. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a fair day tomorrow, with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King meets local leaders from Zarqa on the services needed by their governorate and discusses the political situation in the region. Jordan summons the Iranian ambassador to reiterate its strong condemnation of the ransacking and burning of Saudi diplomatic missions in Iran. And the United States says initial analysis of North Korea's nuclear test is not consistent with the claim of a successful hydrogen bomb test. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.